Corey, the level of concern for Pacer fans, Pacer players, is what, in your opinion?
I believe it's probably about a 5 on a scale of 1 to 10 right now, Dan. And the reason being is because, Tyrese Haliburton was so lackadaisical in last night's game. And it's something that we've seen from Tyrese Haliburton throughout his playoff career the last 2 seasons. And there's no reason, there's really no rhythm to it. It's just some days he's not the same player, especially coming off a historic performance, 32, 15, and 12 with 0 turnovers. In game 5, you would expect to see him be more aggressive on the road. They didn't see that, but I do believe we will see it tomorrow night in game 6, which that's why the concern is only a 5.
I don't know if this is a big deal. It felt like some people are trying to make it a big deal. Pascal Siakam post game said they played harder than the Pacers. Like, you can say they executed better, but in a game 5 with a chance to go to the NBA Finals, a team played harder than you?
But it was the case. He told the truth, and oftentimes, that's the thing. We ask players to be honest. He told the truth, and the Knicks did play harder. The Knicks played with a sense of urgency and a sense of desperation, and the Pacers played as though they knew they had another opportunity to be able to close it out on their home floor in a game 6. And Pascal Siakam was spot on. The Knicks did play harder. It may not be something that you want to hear from your teammate in the locker room, but at the same time, everybody in the locker room that was part of that game can look each other in the eye and say, it's the absolute truth. The Knicks did play harder than we did tonight.
Tougher to defend Haliburton or Brunson?
Tougher to defend Brunson. And the reason being is because Brunson, regardless as to whether he's making shots, he's missing shots, whatever it may be, he is constantly going to stay aggressive. He's going to continue to come at you every opportunity he gets. And more importantly, Jalen Brunson, it doesn't matter who's on the floor. He can be playing with Michael Jordan. And when it's all said and done, when Jalen Brunson steps on the basketball court, he thinks he's the best player on the court, and he was last night.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by just his style. It's relentless. He just keeps coming. It's always going forward, and I love that. I just don't know the rest. Karl Anthony Towns played pretty well. It seemed pretty mobile for a guy that was, I guess had a questionable knee going into that game last night.
Yeah, he was very mobile. And when you consider Karl Anthony Towns, he really gets his opportunities to start the second quarter, start the fourth quarter when Jalen Brunson's on the bench. But with the new starting lineup that Tibbs has employed over the last 3 games, Jalen doesn't have as much spacing, which makes the three-point field goal so much more important for him. He got off to a hot start, knocking down threes in that first quarter, 14 first quarter points. I believe he had 16 in the third quarter. I'm not sure if he scored in the second or the fourth. But when you think about the second and the fourth along the cat, they have a great rotation in the way that they're doing things offensively, and it worked in game 5. The problem is the Pacers know that. Will it be able to work for the Knicks in game 6 on the road?
Why is it you think we in the media try to fast track somebody to be face of the sport or the next great player, or is he a superstar? A lot of these players we're talking about are 23 to 27 years of age. It's like we don't give you that grace period before. Michael Jordan had a grace period, and Bird and Magic. Everybody kind of got a grace period. We don't let these younger players now, like Cooper Flagg coming in. How long is his grace period before we say, I don't know, can you win a title here? Why do we do it?
We do it because, and Dan, you've been in this industry much longer than I have. Believe it or not, I was with you in the gym. I believe it's Concord Athletic Club back in San Antonio, getting shots up back in the day. So you've been doing this for a long time. And the difference is, I can say that my company, or our company, Disney, is going to pay $2.8 billion next year for rights to the NBA, which means that it's not about the games, it's about content. And so from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., you have to talk about the game. And therefore, there have to be things to talk about. That's the difference in today's game in comparison to when I was playing in the NBA and even before when you're talking about. There has to be some type of conversation to keep the viewers watching and keep them off of social media and keep them watching TV. So when you think about that, that's the reason why it's constant. And not only that, but these guys don't necessarily care about being the face of the NBA anymore. And the reason being is because when Michael Jordan was playing then, you had to be the face of the NBA to become a billionaire. with these contracts now, you don't have to be. Anthony Edwards can be a billionaire without being the face of the NBA after just 3 contracts and, of course, everything that he gets off the court.
Talking to Cory Alexander, ESPN radio analyst, and he'll be calling Game 6 on the Mothership. That'll be at 7:30 Eastern on Saturday. How was my jumper, by the way, in San Antonio?
I am calling to vouch for you, my man. You actually can shoot the basketball. I believe it was Vinny Del Negro in there with you. I'm not sure. You had another one of your anchors, maybe Overman. I know it wasn't Stuart Scott, but I think it was maybe Overman with you. And it was Vinny Del Negro, myself. I'm not sure. Dale Demps, I know, was in there. But you can shoot the basketball, man. If anybody ever questions it, tell them to come see me. I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. You were knocking down shots that day.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you're a great journalist is what you are. I think I'm a better deep shooter than Vinny Del Negro. Vinny was a great 15 to 18 feet, but he didn't come out to where grown men shoot.
Vinny was a master of the mid-range. That was his game, but I agree. And I used to talk to him all the time in practice. I was like, come on out here in the deep water. Get out of the kiddie pool. He wanted no problem with that. But in the kiddie pool, he's one of the best to ever do it.
Best shooter you ever faced?
The best shooter I've ever faced. Whew. I'm going to go as far as to say his name is now Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. He was once Chris Jackson. But you're talking about one of the best of the best. And again, the dude was relentless. He had the best touch. He was so locked in on making every possible shot, and it was so quick. Honestly, and again, Steph Curry's my nephew. I love him to death. Dale's like a big brother to me. Chris Jackson was Steph Curry before Steph Curry. The way the game has changed has allowed for Steph Curry to be able to do what he's doing. If you couldn't hand check Chris Jackson, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf, if you couldn't be physical with him the way that the game is played now, I'm not saying that he would have been Steph, but he would have been very close to what we've seen Steph do over the last 10 years.
You want to talk about getting a shot off, like, when his handle was wonderful, and when he was at LSU and he was averaging 30 a game, you had Shaq and Stanley Roberts, but the best player was, 6 feet tall in Chris Jackson. But in today's game, you imagine today's game with Chris, just so quick at getting that shot off.
So quick at getting the shot off, but so quick in general, because as you mentioned, the handle, then he hit me with a between the legs crossover one time, and I watched it on the Jumbotron, and I went off the screen completely. You couldn't even find me, and he just absolutely lost me. But the thing is, in that era, and we're going back to, this is 96, my rookie year playing against him, you had to be able to defend. And that's the reason why he didn't get as many minutes. He didn't get as many opportunities, because he struggled defensively. In today's game, where they often find ways to hide guys who lack on a defensive end, and you can keep them on the floor for 35 to 40 minutes. If he had that type he had that type of time, and as you talked about, that grace period, again, we still talking about one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, Mark Price is another player who had an unbelievably just go up quick. And, he would average 20-10. There's a lot of those. Kevin Johnson was another 20-10 guy. There just felt like, that's what you had to do back then. That's when you had true point guards, but then Steph became a points guard instead, like he created his own label there. Did you have your welcome to the NBA moment?
I had a lot of them, and when you just mentioned those names, Mark Price, Kevin Johnson, I started getting flashbacks from all those guys having to deal with. But my welcome to the NBA moment, believe it or not, came in preseason my rookie year, and I was playing against Tim Hardaway at UTEP, so a preseason game at UTEP. Oh, and, of course, I watched so much. Oh, home court. I watched so much Tim Hardaway growing up and playing. And before the game, I'm a fan. I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, Tim, don't hit me with that." And he said, "Don't worry about it, Corey. You don't have to be concerned, but watch what I do to Avery." And he brought out a new move for Avery in that game. Of course, those two guys had history for being with the Warriors together. And after he hit Avery with the move that pretty much spun Avery in a circle, he just looked over at me and gave me a wink. And I knew I might be in for trouble in this league from that point on.
Does it matter who wins the East when you look at OKC and how good they've been regular season, postseason?
I do think it matters. And the reason being is because as good as OKC has been, they are the best team in the NBA. They have the best player right now in the NBA in SGA. But the Indiana Pacers can give them a handful. They can give them everything they want. And the reason being is because Indiana as a team is just as deep as are the Thunder. And they would absolutely make that a series. I'm not sure if it would be a great series if they're going up against the Knicks because the Knicks are so front loaded. But when you think about going 1 through 12, the Pacers are right there. They don't have the star that the Thunder have in SGA, but from a depth standpoint, they can match them toe to toe.
And I know it sounds blasphemous to say this, but SGA has a game. He can lead the league in scoring multiple years. And, the last time Iverson was like that, obviously Jordan was like, there aren't a lot of guys that you go every year. Like he could lead the league in scoring the next 5 years. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But he doesn't, there's no highlights really. It's methodical. I'm coming at you. And it may be mid-range jumpers. It may be layups, but that's it. No threes. But it's pretty dominating in a quiet way, I think.
It really is. And the reason why I think that he won't end up being a guy that leads the league in scoring for the next few years is because he's becoming an even better playmaker. And one of the things that Shai said earlier, I had the chance to, my first TV game, believe it or not, was in Oklahoma City this year. And Mark Daignault told us that Shai has come into this season with intent on empowering his teammates because he wants to make sure that they are prepared when we get to the playoffs. And it has worked. You've seen what Jalen Williams has done. You've seen what Chet has done. You consider a team that has really gelled around their superstar, but more importantly, each and every one of those guys has had better and career years, even though he continues to lead the league in scoring. And now you see him becoming much more of a facilitator, playmaker. And I think he's only going to get better over these next few years.
We came up with a new category. It's, not Hall of Famer, but Hall of Great. So like Jamal Crawford, Joe Johnson, the guys who aren't Hall of Famers, but they're right there. So do you have a nominee for the Hall of Great?
I can give you a bunch of them. I'll start with Rip Hamilton. And I got a chance to see Rip at the EYBL event last weekend. He's a guy that I'm not sure if he'll get into the Hall of Fame, but he is absolutely great. You think about Larry Johnson. I mean, you can look at the Knicks sideline alone, the people showing up, Latrell Sprewell, Allen Houston. You go down the list of guys who have been there, just the Knicks breaks alone that I've been fortunate to be able to hang out with for the last couple of days in this series. All those guys are in that area. They're all-stars and at the same time may not be Hall of Famers, but you cannot duplicate what those guys were able to do, especially in the era in which they were able to do it. And you take each and every one of those guys and you transplant them into today's era, that scoring average goes up 5 to 6 more points per game. That efficiency goes up. And now you're talking about guys who are Hall of Fame players.
Anybody scare you when you played?
Michael Jordan. But other than that, no. But, the first time I met Mike, and we were at a game, it's called the World's Greatest Pickup Game in Greensboro, North Carolina. His agent, Fred Whitfield, we should put it on. And you walk in the room, and the first time you see Mike, it's that aura around him. But one thing about Michael Jordan, he doesn't let you look at him like that because he immediately starts talking trash to you, and he knows all of your history, your background, or whatever it may be. So he basically welcomes people by talking trash to them. And all of a sudden, now you open up, you're having this debate with Michael Jordan. You walk away from there thinking to yourself, wow, I just got a chance to talk to Michael Jordan. But when it's all said and done, when you got to see him in that Chicago 23, it was a different world. And again, just to see the way that the community showed up and cheered for him, even against you on home games, et cetera, that would be the only guy that I think that's really during my time of covering the NBA that's really incited fear into anyone. And that includes any player today. I mean, he's the only guy that I thought that people actually feared.
Great to talk to you. Let's do this again. Have fun on Saturday. Safe travels to Indiana.
Sounds good, my man. Thanks for having me.